So just to say a little bit about the Exploring Mindfulness and Self-Compassion program. So in a nutshell, I've been working with people in, both physically and psychologically for my whole career. This has been my work and my life. And I started teaching the mindfulness-based stress reduction program that John Kabat-Zinn devised. I started teaching that in 2004, having first come across mindfulness from my own mindfulness teacher in 1992. So I've been practicing mindfulness for a long time, and before that, yoga and meditation since I was a teenager. So I'm very passionate about this whole area and being able to share it. So I was teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction since 2004 officially, and I evaluated the program for my doctoral work, which was published in the Journal of Clinical Oncology, which is a cancer journal, because I was working with people affected by breast cancer. And the other thing that I'm a certified teacher in a program called the Mindful Self-Compassion course. And this is a program that was put together by Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer, two American psychologists. And that was kind of put together about 10 years ago now. It's just grown in popularity around the world because, self-kindness and self-compassion is what many of us need. In fact, I would say most of the population we need more of. So what I did with this Exploring Mindfulness and Self-Compassion program was put in, I did a sort of a hybrid, what I'm going to call a hybrid program, where I put in elements of both those programs into what I call a sort of manageable format. So in this program, I guess it answers a couple of questions. The two main questions of mindful self-compassion are, first of all, how would I treat a friend? We could ask ourselves, how would I treat a friend who's going through difficulties in a similar situation to me, the one I'm going through right now? And often when we do that exercise, we find that the way we treat, what we'd say to a friend, how we'd be with a friend in that same difficulty might be very different from the way we're actually treating ourselves in the same situation. So that's the first one question. And then the other question around mindful self-compassion is we're asking ourselves the question, I mean, mindfulness in a sense asks the question, what's here right now? What am I experiencing? What's here right now? And mindful self-compassion, or the self-compassion side, asks the question, what do I need right now? What do I, as a human being going through this experience, what do I need? And this is what we learn to address in the program. And it's done through practice, it's done through understanding. It's a very embodied practice. This is the most important thing, because if without embodiment, we get stuck in our heads and we just get stuck in thoughts. And this isn't a way that we can help move through our emotional difficulties. We need to be in touch with our bodies and to be able to learn how to, in a sense, work with our bodies to support ourselves when going through emotional difficulty. So that's, in a sense, what the program is about. It's 8 weeks. 8 weeks I've been doing it on a Sunday evening for 2 hours, 8 till 10. So kind of, hopefully it's kind of, most people have a sort of downtime on a Sunday evening, we like to think. I don't know, but we run it then. And as Paula said, we had a really wonderful group last time, a real mixture of people. And what was so wonderful, we had such extremes of people's difficulties and suffering. It was quite extraordinary. People who were from homeless asylum seekers to the opposite end of the spectrum, where we had people who were maybe doing postgraduate counselling courses or something like that. So really a wide range across the whole of society. And I think what was so helpful for everybody was the way that Yardo, and Paul in particular, and her team made sure that everybody could get what they needed to do the course. So people who didn't have a laptop, given a laptop. We had a lady who was in her late 80s, who hadn't used a computer for years, and getting her online and everything, all the support that was there to enable that to happen, and for her to join the virtual community was so important for her, in her isolated situation. So there's a lot more I could say, but that's probably enough. And I think it felt like it was very well received by the people who did it. So I'm looking forward to running it again. Thank you.
So Caroline, your mindful self-compassion course sounds really interesting. Where would you expect people to be when they start, and where when they finish?
Try again. Thank you. It's a really great question, Adiola. Thanks. So I think where we often start these programs is realizing that we've got difficulty in our lives, but maybe not really knowing how to help ourselves. And I think, so I think at the course, what the course gives us is an opportunity to understand how we can learn to support ourselves through the elements of the first element is mindfulness, so being aware of what's happening. The second element is, what we call common humanity, the fact that everybody has difficulties, because often when we have difficulty, we feel very alone. And we think we're the only one that's struggling with this problem. We feel often very ashamed that we can't manage, and all this sort of thing. So common humanity is important. And the third aspect is starting to be a bit kinder to ourselves. The power of self-kindness. Most of us are quite good at being kind to other people, but often we're quite hard on ourselves.
Right.
So it's developing these skills.
I have a quick question about the 8 weeks. Are there modules that you go through? Are there steps? How is it structured each week by week? Are there 8 components, or is it one component that rolls and grows?
So the program builds. So we start off, as I said, we start off understanding more about and learning and feeling and getting the embodied experience of what being mindful is. So we start off by touching into that, and then we start to look at self-compassion, and the same, and then we start to look at then how do we apply both of these things into our lives. How do we apply them in our everyday lives? How do we apply them in our relationships with ourselves, first of all, our relationships with others? So we sort of it broadens out. We started, so there are sort of, you could say, stepping stones through the course. Yeah, but in each week there's a combination of, we do practices, what I'm going to call formal practices, where we practice mindfulness and self-compassion. We have topics to discuss. We have exercises that we do, and we have some poems. So we have a whole, and discussion groups. So we have a whole range of feedback on practices, all sorts of things, a lot of different learning modalities that we use. So it's not just me talking to people for 2 hours each week. It's very interactive. Yes, and everybody gets a practice, and they get exercises to do during the week. So, and in a sense, the whole thing is about how do we integrate the whole, this whole practice into our everyday lives. That's the point. It's not about taking ourselves off and doing something for 5, 10, 20 minutes, half an hour, and then forgetting it it's about, weaving this in as part of how we are and how we live our lives. In essence, to help us, coming back to Adiola, your question, really to help us all live a happier and healthier life, which I believe is what most of us want.